My name is Devin Stakilo, and I work with RMED as a regional economic development advisor. And as I mentioned, the session's being recorded, so I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. Before we start, I just want to do a land acknowledgement, and we acknowledge that our Brandon office is located on Treaty 2 lands, the traditional homelands of the Dakota, Nishnabek, Ojibwe, Cree, Dene, and Métis peoples. However, we work extensively throughout the province of Manitoba in the lands of Treaties 1 through 4 and the southern portion of Treaty 5. RMED respects the treaties that were made on these lands where we all work together. We commit to reconciliation along with the path to economic prosperity. As I mentioned, we have 1 hour for our webinar today. And throughout the webinar, if any questions come up, please feel free to put the questions in the chat box. We'll be monitoring those and we can get to those at the end or if time permits throughout the session. I would just like to take this opportunity to recognize the staff from RMED that we have on the call today. We have Teddy Garvey, who's the project coordinator at RMED. And she's the one that'll be so graciously monitoring the chat and dealing with all the technical side of things, if any should arise. We also have Eric Forster. He is also an economic development advisor and my partner in crime. And again, as mentioned, my name is Devin Stakilo, and I also am an economic development advisor. I just want to say a few words about our guest, Alex Fallon. Alex has over 20 years experience in a variety of leadership roles in Canada, the UK, and Asia. He's been the CEO of 2 multi-million-dollar organizations, a successful entrepreneur, and has worked in economic development roles for municipal government, provincial government, and the federal government. He's won multiple EDAC and IEDC awards for his work in regional economic development. Alex has been awarded the Sovereign's Medal, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal, and is the British Honorary Counsel to the province of Saskatchewan. He is the founder and chair of the Western Canada Economic Forum, the founder of Artificial Intelligence Saskatchewan. He is a poet, a playwright, and an author. His first book, All I Have Is Words, was published in 2023. There it is. And he holds a Bachelor of Economics honors and a Bachelor of Laws honors as well. His favorite movie is Top Gun, and his dream job would be to own an art gallery. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Alex to give his presentation on 3 reasons to attend the Western Canada Economic Forum and how creativity is the key to rural economic development. So, Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Devin, and good morning, everyone. If we had time, I'd ask everyone to introduce themselves and where they're from, but I don't think we have time for that. But just want to say good morning to everyone. I see Morgan, Abby, Penny, Nadine, Whitney, Scott, Mariette, Jolanda, Nadine, Farhan, and Samantha are all kind of the names I see on my screen. There might be more, but good morning, everyone. So yeah, I'll start with the Western Canada Economic Forum. Terrible long name. I should have thought of something more glamorous, but I'll call it the Forum for short. So it is coming up right around the corner, January 22nd, the Fairmont in Winnipeg. I don't know if a few people are already signed up or some people have been thinking about it or not, but I'd encourage everyone to attend. And the reason why, to help you remember, I created a little acronym, and the acronym is PIL. So anytime we see like Tylenol or something, you'll remember the forum. And PIL stands for PILL, obviously, PIL. The first one is for the people who are going to be at the forum. That's the most important thing. Like the forum is it's just people turning up in a room and like. So that's, I think, the main thing I would say. When I look at the program of speakers, I'm kind of looking forward to it as well because some of these people I've never met, some I have. But just to give you an example, you may know some of these people, you may not. The first is a lady called Althea Raj. I don't know if people recognize the name. I don't know her, but she's a young lady, a journalist. She's amazing. Someone mentioned her name to me. I hadn't heard of her. I looked her up. She is a panelist on CBC's The National News Evening News broadcast on the At Issue panel, if you've ever seen that. Like the smartest person I've heard speak, such a good speaker, journalist, and she's gonna act as the MC and host, which is great because I would make a bad host, but she's like incredibly smart and she's gonna be the MC and host. If you check her out, if you've never seen her, she's got some interviews on YouTube, just amazing. Second one, some of you may have seen him speak. I never had, so I'm totally excited about this. Is the Premier Canoe, of course. I assume a few of you have seen him speak live at different events. Maybe. I hear he's a great speaker, so looking forward to that. Third, I'll just mention a couple. Third one you might never have heard of, a guy called Dr. Bill Weiser from Saskatoon. He's like he's a great guy, and I'd never met him before, but he's one of Canada's top historians. And I booked him to do an event a couple weeks ago in Saskatoon and to give a history talk on the history of Saskatchewan. And I was super nervous because I'd never seen him speak. I hadn't actually met him until the night of the event. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is our keynote speaker. And it's a historian, and I'm not sure what I'm doing. He gets up on stage. He's an older gentleman. He won't mind me saying this. And he gets up on stage and gives this amazing talk. And we're at a conference place in Saskatoon, gives this talk, standing ovation. And I was like, I've never seen a standing ovation at like a kind of economic city type of event like that before. So he's going to be giving a talk on the history of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. We may have a choir there. I don't know. I'll just mention that. Michael Solberg is a political commentator. He's on the news as well, young guy. Never seen him speak. Eric might remember from last year. He turned up, gave this presentation, left, and it was kind of amazing. It's like, who is this guy? That was a great presentation. Cadmus Delorme is an Indigenous speaker on economic reconciliation. Yeah, right, Eric. He was amazing. There were people in the room crying. I kid you not. It was amazing. Just an amazing talk. And then we've got speakers from out of province. So Adam, who's the CEO of Business Council of Alberta. Prabha, who's the CEO of the Saskatchewan Chamber. So hopefully some speakers who will be speaking in Winnipeg who you've never seen before. And I think that's always nice to see. We also have the West 20, which is a leadership recognition award for 20 impactful leaders in economic development and business growth. And I think there are one or two maybe RMED members. So just surprise. So there's that. So that's the P for people. Tons of great people speaking. I love just sitting there watching these speakers and learning from them and being like, who is amazing? Who can I learn from? The I is for information, inspiration, and ideas. So you get a lot of information on the economy, the big issues for Manitoba, Western Canada, which I think is great because we need to know our stuff. Inspiration. I think some of these speakers are inspirational and hopefully it inspires you to, think of ideas or events you can do in your communities. And the final I is for ideas. Hopefully just sitting there, you take in what the speakers are saying and think of how that links back to economic development. And the L, there's only one L actually, is for leadership. And I think it's like I had this when I was at the Saskatoon Regional Economic Development Authority. We were smaller. We had small towns, communities, hamlets, some of the smaller cities as our members. And sometimes you felt like you're up against like the Saskatchewan Chamber of Commerce or the Mining Association of Saskatchewan, all these big organizations. And the position we took was around leadership is like, we're going to be in the room. We're not going to play small. And our role, our organization, our communities are just as important as the other big provincial players and the big companies. So to me, it's kind of the leadership of turning up and not playing small. Reminds me one time we went to the IEDC. I don't know if anyone's been to those, but the International Economic Development Council, I think, events. And we took out like the biggest booth you could imagine. And people were like, what is Saskatoon doing, Alex? What are you doing? The budget, like, what are you crazy? And we went there and we were like, everyone was like coming up to us, like, who are you guys? We had, you'd expect it to be some major city, and it was a regional act dev corp. So, yeah, I think being in the room and flying the flag for your organizations, RMED, municipalities is so important. Sometimes we shy away from that. So, yeah, say don't play small and kind of lead into some of these events. So that would be three reasons: people, inspiration, and leadership to come to the conference. So hopefully see some of you there. So there's the plug. That's the advert. So thanks for that. Any questions on the forum? If not, I will go into the economic development part then. So I'm gonna try and share my screen, and sometimes that kind of shrinks everyone up and I can't see everything and I feel like I'm talking to a blank screen. But anyway, we'll try this. So if I maybe maybe that works. Let me see. Um, can you see my screen now? What do you see?
Mona Lisa and a bottle of Gatorade.
Okay, perfect. Okay, can you see me or not? Okay.
Just in the top, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. I've got some good view thing. Okay. So yeah, my talk really is around creativity in economic development. Two topics that sometimes maybe don't quite go together, but I want to talk about that. The other thing I'll say, if you feel I'm a little bit nervous, I am, because it's hard to talk about yourself and things you've done, but that's kind of why I was invited to speak. So I'll just talk about the things I've done, we've done in economic development, and yeah, hopefully find it interesting and maybe learn something. Let me know if you do. If you don't, I owe you a drink or a beer at the forum or something. So, excuse me, creativity in economic development. So I think this story starts in 2014, and it was interview. It was an interview. And I was out of the job at that time because I'd quit my government Saskatchewan job, moved to Vancouver Island thinking I'd get a job there. And I did not. Two little kids, a wife, and a job advert came up in Saskatoon. And it was for the CEO of the Saskatoon Regional Economic Development Authority, or SREDA for short. I was or not pretty young, I was younger at the time. There was an acting CEO there. I knew there were some great experienced people who had applied for the job. Short story is, I knew there was no way I was getting this job. There's just no way. I'd never been a CEO, hadn't been a VP, but I somehow got, selected for an interview. Excuse me. At the interview, the task was, there's a recruitment agency, and they're like, everyone has this task. You have to give a presentation on economic development, the organization, operations, finance, membership, all that usual stuff, right? Create a PowerPoint, give this presentation. Excuse me. So I bought a suit. I remember buying a suit for the interview, actually in Victoria. Flew to Saskatoon for the interview. I bought a briefcase thing as well from Zara or not, H&M in Victoria, and it still had the stuffing in the briefcase. The like the bubbles or the whatever, because I was just going for the interview. So I knew if I gave that presentation, I would not get the job. And this is the first time this kind of way of thinking happened. So it's like, what do I do? It's like, I don't know, but I've got to do something. And so go into this meeting room, four people I'd never met, this recruitment guy, Dan Brown. And they said, okay, Alex, blah, 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 over to you, presentation. And I had one slide. And I put it up, and it said, my goal is to become the best economic development agency in Canada. And I sat down. And I was like, shit. I was like so scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm sweating so bad. I'm like, is it coming through my blazer? It was just terrible. And the four interview people are sat there going like, is this for real? Like what kind of what's going on? And luckily, one of the interviewees, a lady called Wanda Hunchuk, who was the incoming chair of SRITA, kind of lent in and said, like, okay, Alex, like, how would you do this? And that's when we started talking. So we just sat down and we started talking about this. No slides, no PowerPoint, the cord and the pointer and all that stuff. It's like, no, we just sat down and had this conversation. So I talked through how how I could do that. And then I remember her saying, like, well, how would you know you'd become the Beck Economic Development Agency in Canada? And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. I was like, oh, we'd win like an EDAC award for the best economic development agency in Canada. They have these awards. Calgary's won, I think Halifax had won it. Like, why can't Saskatoon? Well, Alec, we smaller budget, smaller city, and I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, we can totally do it. Why not? So that's the goal we set, and that was the interview. Walked out, get a phone call a couple days later, got offered the job. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So that's where this, like, I call it the bravery training started, where like you do something different and it leads to these interesting results. So it was an interview where I said that. And then I remember going on the news a couple of months after I started, and the new CEO, blah, blah, blah. And the board's like, okay, but like, don't mention the goal. Like, we don't want to get egg on our face. Like, let's start small. You're new. Let's see what you can do the first year. And I ended up saying on there, it's like, we want to become the best economic development agency in Canada. So anyway, that was the goal. Um, and since then, so that was 10, 11 years ago, really got into this. How do you bring creativity into like business and economic development, and what can sometimes be a bit of dry, topics to some people. I love this quote about creativity is the ability to see what isn't there, because it's like, I didn't know what I was going to do for the interview. And then you take that creativity, you invent something, you create something, you do it. And I believe it leads to like amazing things if you can do it. Excuse me. So one of the first examples, the board, the mayor are like, Alex, we need a new economic development video to profile Saskatoon and the region. And I was like, okay, like, but I was like, I don't want, like, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be like, the shot of the Saskatoon River, the Besborough Hotel, the manufacturing sector, tractor, some mining guy, sparks, a whiteboard. And, I found one today on, like, I just Googled it, Hamilton economic development video. And it's like exactly the same as what we'd had before and what we were going to do, right? Is factories and all this kind of stuff. So I sat down with Erin Lawson, who was my marketing manager at the time. And I was like, what are we going to do? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's try this. What I call the paradox principle. So we sat down and we wrote down all these things, how to do an economic development video. Okay, we need like a busy street. We need the tourist icons of Saskatoon. We need the mining sector. We need all this stuff. I'm like, okay, that's how you do it. It's like the job interview. It's like operations, finance, values, mission statement, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, we're not doing that. And Aaron was like, okay, like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, but we're not doing that. Whatever we do cannot have that in it. And we were like, whatever. So anyway, I can't remember exactly how we got there, because brainstorming, ideation, conversations like this, creativity, just somewhere you come up with the idea. So like, let's do a poem. Let's do a video, spoken word poem, and that's going to be it. So no color, black and white, no economic shots, nothing. I don't even think we mentioned the economy. And that's what we did. So it was called The Saskatoon I Know. I wrote a poem about Saskatoon. I still got it actually in a frame, just scribbled on a back a piece of paper. We went to the event and we played it on this giant screen. I don't know if you can see that giant screen at the conference, this video. And I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we're doing this. And we played it and people loved it. And I remember like Aaron's like, we got 100 views on that video. We're like, yes, oh my God, and someone's asked for it, and oh my God. And it just kept going. 600, 700, 800, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. It's up. Last time I checked, it's like 19,000 views compared to our previous economic development videos, which I think got, I don't know, good numbers. I don't know what it was, but it never went like this. Um, so anyway, you can check out that video if you want. One guy, black and white, um, and that was it. And we did end up winning. The awards don't matter, but for the board, they kind of do, right? It was like, so anyway, that was one of the projects we did, and it went okay. Um, I have a blank slide. I don't know what that's for. Oh, this one was about trade missions. So same type of thing. We want to do Saskatchewan, Sreda, we're doing a trade mission to the UK. We're like, okay, like how do we do that? We wrote it down. The mayor or premier, minister of trade and economy, podium, flag, some sort of presentation, banners, all that kind of stuff. Okay, not doing that. Not taking the mayor, not taking a minister. No one in England cares about regional Saskatoon. Like, we're not doing it. What are we doing? I don't know. And okay, so we're like, things about Saskatoon, the Besborough, the river, mining sector, cold, all these things, Saskatoon berries, blah, blah, blah. Ooh, Saskatoon berries. What can we do with Saskatoon berries? I don't know. Take some, promote them. We're like, and at the time, Gordon Ramsay was like popular, his TV show, I forget what it's called. And we're like, let's get Saskatoon berries on a menu at a Gordon Ramsay restaurant. That became our trade mission. And I forgot to mention, because it started at that interview day, when you come up with these ideas, the first reaction of like your I had a 16-person board with counselors, I think three mayors, a regional counselors, some business leaders who I looked up to. And you get that look like, they're like, Alex is crazy. Like, what, no. And that's when you're doing something good because it means no one's done it or no one's thought of the idea or it's a little bit risky because there's a risk in all this, right? I know we're going to do it. So they're like, how are you going to do it? I'm like, I don't know. We went to the store. We bought a jar of Saskatoon berries. We bought 2 flights to England and went to England. And like, what are you gonna do? Like, we walked into a bunch. We found all the Gordon Ramsay restaurants in London, and we walked into a bunch of them, and we kept going. And like, no, no, health and safety. We can't. Who are you? We've never heard of this fruit. Whatever. One restaurant was like, "Oh, come back to the kitchen. I'll introduce you to the head chef." Takes us back into this kitchen, starts talking to the chef. The chef had never heard of Saskatoon berries. He like tries it. He's like, "Oh, okay. Come back tomorrow for dinner." Like, all right, we'll talk. I'll think about it. Whatever. We go back the next day. It's on the menu at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. It was steak, Saskatoon berries, and something else. We sat down and we ate it. Story took off. It's getting interviews from like CBC National. It just took off. It went crazy. So, and again, we did not do what we were supposed to do, and that led to this thing. There's the chef. I was in the kitchen. That's the little jar of Saskatoon berries, and it blew up on the news. But this is the risk and scary part of creativity and economic development. So I'm in my hotel room later the day, and I'm kind of feeling a bit cool. Like we did it. Everyone said you couldn't do it. It's crazy. Like whatever, like we did it. Then I get a text from Chris Decker, the CEO of the Saskatoon Trade and Export Partnership. And he's like, excuse me, he's like, Alex, like, Saskatoon berries are banned from export because it's a fruit, berry, health, UK trade, all this stuff. And I was like, what? And he's like, we're going to look into it, but like, we've had people asking us if that's allowed. Like, you can't import fruit or berries, whatever. And I was like, I've lost my job. I'm going to be fired. I've like smuggled in this berry into the UK. I remember standing in the hotel room going, oh, like I lost my job. Wife's going to kill me. Text me back a couple hours later. He was like, they were banned. They are absolutely banned. You would have been in trouble. Be careful. But they'd just recently been approved on like health ingredients or something. So it turned out okay. But that's the risk of this stuff. So Like, yeah. I remember that. I was almost in tears in my hotel room. I was like, oh my God, I've committed, the mayor is gonna kill me. So anyway. Another example for our regional players, I remember thinking of is this type of thing. We need a regional event. What are we going to do for our regional members? Martinsville had dropped out. Warman, I think, had just recently come back as a member. Like, what are we going to do for them? Sat on my couch one night, Googled Warman and Martinsville, and this map came up. I don't know why directions is the first thing that comes up, but this map came up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know if anyone notices something from this map, but I was like, it's literally 10K from Martinsville to Warman. Like, that's kind of weird. And I was like, I went into the office the next day and I'm like, we're going to do a 10K run as our regional event for this year. And people were like, no, we're not. And I'm like, no, we're going to do it. So we came up with, and same type of process led to this. So we came up with the regional run. 10K to Martinsville, and then there was a bus to take you back for barbecue. The next year we did Martinsville to Warman, and we created that was the first poster on the left. So 2017. And then yeah, we did it the next year, and I think it's still going, I'm not sure. Took off. We got sponsors. People came in from all the communities around town. We created a community event. The mayors were there to ring the bell. We had people I'd never heard of Srita. Now we're doing this run in the communities, and it definitely was our biggest regional success ever. I think that thing's grown. Warman's made money. It turned out to be a success. At the time, we're like, why is Srita doing a running event? Like, people looked at you like, this is no. But that was one of our successes. This again was one of the scariest ones we did. So we created an event called the STIC Awards, Science, Technology, Innovation, Collaboration, to recognize kind of the science city theme we were going after, collaboration in the region, innovation, entrepreneurs, all those type of things. Let me take a drink. So the STIC Awards. So again, what are we going to do? Well, Alex, you're going to be the MC, or we'll get one of the entrepreneurs, or like, no, we're not. We're not doing that. So we're like, what can we do? I forget where the idea came from, who had it. We decided to have Dr. Odenberg as our MC. Famous physician from Germany, and he was flying to an event in New York. He was stopping in Saskatoon for some research at the university. He was going to be our MC. Dr. Odenberg, his actual name is Ken, and he's an actor from Regina. But this is the idea we came up for. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to have like a fake doctor. We're not going to tell people he's going to be the MC of the event. He was a trained actor, a trained professional clown, and a magician. Like, oh my God. So I thought on this one, and this is a big event. We've got the mayors, the councillors there, the business community, entrepreneurs, the researchers at the, universities. So I thought on this one, I'm going to give Mayor Charlie Clark a heads up. So a few weeks, months maybe before the event, I said, Charlie, just so you know, heads up. The MC is not really a doctor. It's a guy called Ken from Regina. He's like, yeah, okay, Alex, yeah. Like by now you've built up some trust that you can do some crazy things, and you get a bit of trust. So I'm like, okay. So this photo someone took at the event kind of before we started, and that's Ken on the right, that's me, and that's Charlie Clark. And I'm like, Charlie, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Odenberg. Thinking he's going to remember I told him that this isn't, but I'm laughing with the mayor. I knew him pretty well by this time. I was like, Charlie, it's Dr. Odenberg. And the mayor's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. I'm so glad you could be here. Thank you so much. Like, welcome. And he forgot, because Ken's doing a German accent. He's totally in character. He's like talking scientists. And Charlie just must have forgot, or just, I don't know. Anyway, that photo was like, anyway, I just love that. So we did that. He gets up on stage. Alex, thank you for the introduction. So good to be here in Saskatoon. Some of my research, I can't do a German accent. Some of my research friends at the university, I'm on my way to the conference in New York, and blah, blah, blah. does a little magic trick with his thing where it disappeared and then he got it again. And I thought, okay, people are getting it that this is not a real guy, but they're not. I'm sat along the side by those chairs, and I look at Aaron, the marketing manager, and I'm like, we're gonna get fired. This is so bad. Like, we're lying to the whole business community, the university, the professors, our sponsors. Like, we told nobody other than the mayor. Some people who knew the Srita little magic kind of figured out, like, oh, this is a Srita thing. This is not a real doctor. Like, it's obvious. He's like, when I was in Time magazine, and like, there are still people to this day who think we had a world famous scientist as our MC for this event. Kid you not. Ken told me after the event, someone had come up to him from Sask Polytechnic and said, like, oh, doctor, so nice to meet you. I've read some of your research, the articles. Like, it's an honor to have you here. And it's like, Ken kept it going. He stayed in characters like, oh, thank you very much. Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, and so, but people loved it because I wasn't the MC. It wasn't the mayor. It was this crazy doctor doing all this stuff. So we did a flash mob at one of the first economic outlook luncheons we did. I was like, we're not having a GDP chart. We're not having an economic outlook by Conference Board of Canada. Like, we're not doing that. What are we going to do? Well, let's have a flash mob. And we did this flash mob. And it worked. But this was the first time we did like economic outlook luncheon, and we had a flash mob of singers. And we released a CD called Saskatoon Shines. And we gave people CDs. So another example. Conscious of time, so I'm going to run through this. Local entrepreneur Sherry stopped by the street office one day in a small town, and her business was struggling. She needed help. She makes hats. And I come back from lunch, and Tara's like, I like some lady dropped off some brochures of her hats. She needs help. Is there anything we can do with her? And I'm like, I don't think so. But we met with Sherry, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we came up with the idea to try and get a hat to Princess Meghan Markle at the time in the UK. And we ended up, long story short, somehow we ended up doing it. We went there. There's a Sova hat from Saskatoon in the, I don't know, closet of the royal family. I don't know. And like, people didn't kind of believe us because they didn't allow us to publicize it because we couldn't be doing it for marketing reasons, blah, 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 blah. We kind of got the story out there. Sherry used it for marketing later because no one really cared. A couple of weeks later, we get a letter from Kensington Palace. Someone, nice type letter. Megan signed it. Thank you for the hat. I'll wear it. Blah, blah, blah. It was amazing. Her business took off. She got featured in GQ magazine, and it became a success. And she makes beautiful hats. So it was like easy. So check her out. Yeah, writing that poem for the Saskatoon I Know, which I just did for that video. It's like, we're going to write a poem. Kind of led to me going like, oh, I kind of like this. My goal one day was to write it. It's like, oh, I'm going to write a book one day. Where am I going? Ended up doing that, which the point there is like, at least other things that you would never have thought of when you lean into some of this stuff, like the regional run led to this big event, community event. And it just leads to other things. As an example, that Western Canada Economic Forum started literally with a scribble in a notebook. My buddy did this first logo on, like, I don't know, Canva or Chat or something. And we use that. The middle photo is with a marketing company. I went to a marketing company in Saskatoon and said, I have no budget for a logo or website. I've become an entrepreneur now. I can't afford, 14,000 for a logo. And they looked at me like, well, what do you want us to do for free? And I'm like, you know what? Let's share any money we get from tickets, and we'll just do that. And they did it. And I think first time they'd done something like that. This was the meeting we had. You can see me on the Zoom. We've got the designer and the marketing company on there with this logo. And now 3 years later, we're like moved out of Saskatoon. We're in Winnipeg. We have the premier speaking, and we're like, oh my goodness, we've created, from a scribble to this process, and you've created an event, an economic project, whatever it is, that now exists and grows in 3 years' time. You can't judge it in year one. It's like, where does this lead to 3 years later? What are you doing for time? So I started kind of leaning into this ideation, and I was talking to a friend, actually from that marketing company, became a friend, talking to him about setting up my own company that does ideation and creativity and that type of thing. And he's like, oh, I don't know, like, okay, like here, like let's try and create a global project in less than an hour. And we're just like having a few beers, and that's what we're talking about. And like we literally had a blank piece of paper. And again, I forget how the idea like evolves from brainstorming, blah, 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 all the way through to something. We ended up coming up with the phrase, I remember, like walk the block. It was like, okay, we're going to start a community initiative where we get out in small town Rosthern and we walk the block, stopping at the local shop. We'll get other people to walk the block, that Main Street type of thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I do remember when it was like, oh, what about walk the block at 8 o'clock? What if we all did it at the same time in different communities and it was 8 o'clock, get everyone outside their house, movement, health, all that stuff. And so we started working on this and it grew. And then we turned it into a real thing because we're like, that's actually a great idea. Like we should do this. So we created Walk the Block at 8 o'clock. And it's just taken off. We've got 557, I think, people signed up across Saskatchewan, the US, we've got Switzerland, Germany, someone in Greece, someone in El Salvador, all the big cities. We've got people in Winnipeg, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. And this thing's taken off. We just did our first sponsorship agreement with a Swiss shoe company. It's hard to say, called GNL. The father of the founder of GNL was the guy who invented the on running shoe foot sole thing. Anyway, so check that out. The website's called walkingtheblock.com. And yeah, we've turned that into a thing now, which is great. The global health movement, we've called it. So in the end, I did end up setting up my own company, Fallon and Bars, which is an ideas agency. People are like, what's that? Doesn't exist. And it does. So if any community wants to kind of sit down and go through this process, just let me know. I went super fast, but yeah, that's about it. That's creative things we've done in economic development. There's a few others I forgot to mention, but yeah, happy to chat or answer questions about that.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, Alex. That's a lot of information, and yeah, it certainly hearing discussions and talks and ideas like that helps to sort of culminate other ideas and help us thinking creatively, especially at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we appreciate that for sure. I see there is a question. Eric already has one right off the bat here. So, Eric.
So I guess it's more of the recent discussion there, Alex. But I look around the room with rural economic development officers, or in general, EDOs are sometimes tasked to do more with less, so to speak. But at what point did you compare or decide it was better to go, off the beaten path, try something different versus the standard quo?
Yeah, good question. I think it was because that standard path, it's so hard. And because everyone else is doing the similar thing, it becomes hard to distinguish yourself. So, why should we join Strida versus this thing? We could do it ourselves. We could, like it's been the same for 4 or 5 years in a row. We all know how it kind of works. Like we'll be fine without it. So we had our regional, when I joined at Strida, our regional members were leaving in droves. The big ones, Warman and Martinsville, had left. So I kind of knew like if I just go back and say like, hey, please come back as a member again. Well, we decided to leave. What's different? What's going to be different? And I kind of set out this vision. We want to be the best in Canada. We're going to do things differently. We're going to promote regional companies, blah, 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 blah. So I think people give you the benefit of doubt. And then when you try it once or twice, have a little bit of success, it kind of works out. And what I found was people then love that you're doing something different because we're all just people go home and we're all just grown up kids, and you know what I mean? And like when you see the mayor or the council or the reeve, like kind of go like, yeah, that was funny. It's like totally different than like, what's our membership fee getting? Um, so yeah, I think it was a realization that it's sometimes you got to switch it up. We still did some of the other stuff you have to do, right? But we added these things in. And the other thought there, which I just lost, was yeah, builds relationships. You still do the other stuff really well, but you add in something different, and people are like, huh, that's different. Yeah.
I had a question there at Scott over here. First of all, you're crazy with those ideas, but I was just laughing half the time there, so that was good. Respectfully, of course.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah,
Um, so, even talking about the Srita, the organization that you were involved with there, no, it seemed like again, just to reach out, there's a marketing lean here, right? Like there's the message, you're controlling a message, you're doing it in a way that's getting people's attention. We know economic development also typically has a marketing issue, right? Like the industry as a whole. Um, I'm just curious because you're like the good work you're doing and seeing some of the stuff you did. What was your anchor in some of these things? Was your anchor like where, like when I came from management, for example, and I always wanted people to either end up on my social media page or on my website. That was always my anchor. So I'm pushing, I'm out, you're in UK, you're doing these things. What was your anchor? Like what brings everything that you're trying to do back together?
love that. And I never kind of thought of it strategically like that. Like I at first when you're answering asking questions, like I don't know if we had one, but looking back, I, you know, I realized what it was and what it ended up being and what worked was we were basically trying to create a community and relationships. So the first economic, I joined as CEO of Srita. I have no idea what to do. Never done this job before. And I was like, ah, and the team was like, well, we have our economic outlook luncheon coming up. Like we do that. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And it was terrible. Like we had 47, 46, 47 people turn up at the Radisson Hotel in Saskatoon. 8 of those were like our team. Another 12 were like our board. So we had like 20 people. We had this economist come in. He's got the GDP chart. And I'm just like, oh my God, we got to switch it up. We got to do something different. So it then became like, how can we create an event or something that people can come to? Next one was 80, next one was 100. You're building these relationships. They tell people, they invite people, more members, more businesses, large audience, people feel part of it, smaller communities coming in, creating this regional community, blah, 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 blah. By the end, our membership went up, our revenue went up. The last economic event we did was just before COVID. We had 650 people. And it's like, how did that happen? And it was, I think, creating this community. So you got to get people in a room. You got to get people sitting down with you, coming to the meetings and getting to know them and getting them involved. And then it kind of spreads from there. So the regional run was a good example where we met so many people, entrepreneurs, businesses, different counselors, different communities came, companies got involved, the barbecue, volunteering, and all of a sudden, and I knew no one in Warman or Martinsville, like I'd probably never been there. And it's like you ended up creating a community. So looking back, I think that's what it was we got to get people together through what we're doing. And then that leads to the economic development work we ended up doing. We did regional grants, we did, other stuff, but the relationship leads to doing future projects.
Yeah, it's interesting too, where our organization is, looking to expand the regional model as well. So we've been working with RMs and local RMs in our surrounding area. And that's always the question, right? Like, how do you, part of this, I'm still new in the position, but part of the plight is being able to display relevancy and to bring people together consistently and to make people care about the cause, right? Like, how do you care that we've upticked 1% in a certain category or 2%? They don't like the average person doesn't fully understand it, right? Um,
Exactly.
And so what I'm hearing you also kind of say is you're using marketing partially just to get the word out there that we exist and we care about these things. But the work of it is when you get them all in the same room. You know, you
Totally.
get them networking, talking, ideas, you know, that kinds of things. That would be kind of a way I could whittle down what you're saying, right? Is you're using your strategic creativity to actually just let people know you're here and get people in the room. Once they're in the room, you've created your network, and then there's outworking from that.
That's like the best summary. I should have recorded that. Yeah, totally. That's kind of what we ended up doing, and it led to other things. So from that, it led to this idea of a regional plan, and like we got into big zoning, land use development, regional planning district. Like we these little bits of creativity I'm talking about. We still did all the other stuff, but it led to some of that stuff. Got the relationships going. So absolutely, yeah, yeah. That's I think what happened. And I think it starts with that little bit of crazy look is being comfortable going in front of the community business owners, the mayor, the reeve councillors and saying, we're going to do this. And they're like, no, you're not. Like that's, you know, no, we're going to do the first of a kind thing in this town. And I
Yeah.
know, and then people love it doing that big thing. And if you fail, they actually even forget. Like there were a lot of failures in here as well. Like I'm highlighting the things that worked. There was a bunch that were like, oh my God, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But people then give you kind of okay, like you tried your best and you're trying, so I think you got to show that too. Whereas like CEO of the Regional Economic Development Authority, economic outlook, it can be such that dry topic, right? So
Well, it seems like you never want to hear a CAO's name. If you're hearing the name, it's usually not a good thing, right? But it's not like if you hear the economic development's name, it means you're at least active. You're doing something, people care. You just want people thinking about the organization, right?
yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah,
Roger. Makes sense.
yeah,
I guess
easy.
that was kind of a follow-up that I was going to ask. And Alex, we've already beat you to the punch. We are recording this, so you can go back and listen to Scott's comment again. Um, is there a an endeavor that didn't succeed that you'd be willing to share, or maybe another endeavor that maybe had a slow start and you kind of wondered, is it worthwhile pursuing, but you ended up, um, evolving it?
Yeah, a bunch. I think a lot of them started small. We had one where it was called we came up with an acronym like the Regional Economic Development Grant, and we took some of our membership money from Saskatoon and others, and we decided we were going to give it to grants back to different communities if they had to make a proposal to us. And people were like, you're taking in all this money and you're going to give it to the town of Rostern. We're like, yeah. It created a competitive process. They had to bid on it, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up giving out money. We pooled our regional membership money and we gave it all out to one or two projects in only one or two towns. And like that didn't go down well to start with, but then that town loved it. Oh my God, the value being in Srita, they presented to their council. We got this money from Srita to help us develop this. And I think we ended up doing that for 3 years in a row, grew the pot, and it led to some great things. So that one comes to mind. Um, yeah, and then we stopped doing things as well. Like once we've done it for a while, you have to switch it up. So our science and technology event, entrepreneurship event, we just stopped doing it because you got to think of something else. But yeah, there were a few when you do something different, people are like, and it's hard to start. You can't judge it in the first years, 3 years later. I don't know if the regional grant program is still going, but that was like you're taking the city of Saskatoon's funding and you're giving it to Aberdeen. Like, yeah, it helped Aberdeen, and then the next year we got better proposals. People started applying with these amazing community events. So yeah, there were some that were like, ugh, but yeah. Well, thanks everyone. Yeah, great. Thanks for giving up your hour and listening and reach out if you've got other questions. Hopefully see you at the forum. And yeah, keep going because I know what it's like. People don't understand it. Economic development, rural especially, and against those big boys who have $1 million budgets like the chamber and others, it's hard. So just yeah, keep doing it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that's fantastic, Alex. I really appreciate you taking the time to go over everything. And just to note, I know that the Western Canada Economic Forum website is WCEF.ca. So I encourage anybody to and everybody to visit that and take a look. Alex did mention, a couple of the key speakers that are there, but there's actually quite a list of other speakers that'll be there. Some notable names as well. People will recognize some of them for sure. And it looks like a really, really great lineup taking place in January 22nd, and there's a invite on the 23rd portion of it. Thanks very much for attending, and thank you very much, Alex, for the great insight and getting our brains going this morning here on Thursday morning.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care.